Welcome to the Kiwi Mana Buzz. Beekeeping up on the hills of Wellington. We talk to Jim Hepburn, and this is episode 125 of the Kiwi Mana Buzz.
We are Gary and Margaret. We love honeybees. We are Kiwi Mana, and we are beekeepers who live in the Waitakere Ranges on the wild west coast of Auckland and New Zealand.
Kiwi Mana is a place where the beekeeping community can share a conversation and connect. And in this episode, we talk to Jim and, well, Jill wasn't there, but they're both from the hills
Of Wellington.
Of Wellington, that's it. And we also, as if that wasn't enough, build and sell beekeeping supplies. We teach beginner beekeepers and provide beekeeper services and advice. And we are the Bees Needs Club Facebook group.
Absolutely, and it's great to have you joining us. We know life is busy for you, and we appreciate you've taken the time to join us today. Thanks for being part of the Kiwi Mana Buzz.
Yeah, hi guys. This podcast was made possible due to our patrons, and they are our supporters and they make donations to us. And this month we would like to thank Trish Stretton. Trish has been supporting the Kiwi Mana Buzz since April 2018. Thanks, Trish. And today she is enjoying her new coffee cup as part of the supporter reward program.
Yes, that's awesome, and I hope you're enjoying the cup, and I hope it's giving you some nice warm coffee there, Trish.
That's it, especially while we are in the middle of winter here in New Zealand.
Yeah, and sorry it took a while to arrive. It must have been on a slow boat.
Absolutely. Storms, whatever, floods.
That's right. And the show notes for this podcast are kiwi.bz/Jim.
Yay. Okay.
That's JIM.
JIM. Okay, well, thanks, guys, for listening to our show. And let's start.
Yes, and this show was recorded in March 2018.
This week we talked to Jim Hepburn, who keeps bees up on the hill near Wellington with his partner Jill, who unfortunately couldn't join us today, so that was a bit of a shame, but we know she's there in spirit.
Yes, she was busy babysitting grandkids, as you'll learn about in the show. And we learn how Jim and Jill deal with the Wellington Winds and how they manage to keep bees going while they're very busy in their work.
Yes, Jim and Jill do a lot of travelling, and yeah, you'll hear how they cope with those things. And there's a bit of controversy on Margaret's side of things with that, but we won't worry about that because their bees are alive.
Yes, and Jim and Jill are good friends who actually met many years ago when we were doing geocaching.
Find out more, guys.
The first question, Jim, what do you love about beekeeping?
What do I love about beekeeping? It's a pleasure to go and have a chat to the girls every day or whenever I can. And it's a very calming influence, and I know that it's a useful task for the world. Yeah, great little creatures.
Yeah. How long ago did you get started in beekeeping?
Well, and this is really a wee job here, and unfortunately Jules can't be with us today, but we got interested by some people in Auckland, actually, when we lived there. And they prompted, I've known about bees, and I've been a farmer and years gone by, and they were just part of what we grew up with, bees in the lawn and that sort of thing. And then we got to know some friends of ours that took a sideways step into bees, and so we've been following them over the years. And it wasn't until we got to Wellington and had a property that we could park some beehives on the back of and do what we wanted to do, which was help the bees and help the planet as the numbers were declining rapidly around the world, and still is, I gather. But certainly in New Zealand it might have turned around a little bit with the volume of our current beekeepers. And so these people, they lived out in somewhere near Kiwi Mana or somewhere. And so they were an inspiration that, yes, you can do this, and it's a good thing to do. And so we watched them with interest and then asked them if they would help us take those steps and mentor us on this new adventure. So, yeah.
Can I ask, Jim, with that, how did you meet these people?
Jill and I I'm not sure how it happened, but we got interested in a crazy activity called geocaching. And geocaching is like a global electronic treasure hunt where you make use of $1 million satellites to find GPS coordinates for little containers that are hidden under bushes and in trees and so on around the world. And so that's where we met these friends of ours.
It is interesting how this geocaching thing brings people together, and it's a bit like beekeeping, I guess.
Yeah. Well, out of that, when we moved to Wellington, I said to Jill, we could put bees on the back of our property here, and she agreed with me because we had a site. We've got a bush section. We've got no lawn. We're on a pole house. We sit up above the bush, and there's a reasonably large reserve around us. And there was a clearing in the bush at the back of our section, which looked like it would be an ideal spot for bees. The flight path and the terrain around looked like it was perfect. And so we said, yes, let's do that. And then after talking to our mentors, they encouraged us to get on with it. And so away we went and joined the local bee club. Jill couldn't come on the first night that we went along. We didn't have bees at this stage, but we joined the local club as a sensible thing to do. And when I got to the meeting, finally found the right building to get into, there was over 100 people turned up for the meeting. And I now know that's quite a regular attendance. And I thought, holy moly. So that was the start, realising that we needed to have a bit of practical knowledge and learn, basically. And so that's when the learning curve started. And it was a very steep learning curve.
And talking of steep, doing your beekeeping is not for the faint-hearted because your property is perched on that side of the hill, steep hill. It overlooks the bay. And what are the tricks that you can share us about utilising the space that you actually have there?
You're absolutely right. It isn't for the faint-hearted, and anyone who is scared of heights, it's probably not the right site for them. But I've got a practical background, having been a farmer, and I'm not nervous about building things. And so what we basically have done is in this clearing, which has got steps, a path going down to it, and have taken pallets and built platforms out of those pallets. So put a couple of posts in the ground and basically built a flat surface with the pallet and put some flash plastic lawn on it just to make it look green.
Looks awesome.
And stop the draft coming up through underneath too much. And so, so basically it's just a series of terraced pallets now, and we've got 3 of those, or there's more than 3 pallets, but 3 layers of those to give us a bit of height amongst the hives so they're not all crammed up in one place. I did a count yesterday because I knew I was going to be talking with your good selves, and there are 61 steps from the hives to the garage, basically. And so
I felt those steps. I've seen them, and they are awesome.
Every piece of equipment up or down to the hives and to the apiary needs to travel those.
And I've travelled those by helping you once, remember?
Yes.
Indeed. And it's interesting that you made a commitment to do this thing and taken on the challenges of this hill site, and that you have got some previous farming experience. And is that the way that you guys use those skills to organise your beekeeping?
Yes, I think they certainly have helped that learning curve, and it is a steep learning curve coming from not knowing a lot about the bee husbandry or whatever we might call that. And so, but having some husbandry skills in the background does make it a little bit easier. And Jill definitely brings an organised approach to it all as well. Very good at bookkeeping and record taking, and keeping the records up to date, and which makes it a lot easier, I think. And if we're organised, we get enough stuff done, and we can do the right things at the right time, mostly to help the bees along.
And Jill's mountain climbing skills would come in handy too, wouldn't it?
Yes, because she designates my good self to do the sort of heavy lifting at the hive, the up-down boxes, etc. at the hive. She then needs to take the role of chief runner, back up and down the stairs. So she actually spends more time than I do walking up and down those stairs.
So it's a great health and fitness situation you've put yourself in there.
Absolutely. There's exercise for Africa. It doesn't matter. And the other side of it is that they're very unlikely for anyone to roll up with a trailer and try and steal them these days. So
yeah, that's it, eh? Like you don't want to get affected by those thieving.
I think they need a helicopter, Jim, to get your hives. So.
They would, yeah, they would. And I look at some of those adventures that I see beekeepers doing now, where they are flying hives in by helicopter, and I think, oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
So are you considering buying a helicopter then?
No, I've gone as far as an extractor at the moment. Is the latest invention to try and or the reason for getting our own extractor is just to make us more timely with extraction, and if it occurs, if it needs to. Because this last season it was a godsend, because we could actually extract and then put them back because we didn't have enough woodwork to keep the girls busy.
Wow. So it was a pretty productive season for you?
Oh, just amazingly grand. I don't know what we would have been expecting if it was, a normal sort of a season, but this last one has just, because it came behind a poor one the year before, the girls have made a surplus that, and we're not into the money side of honey at all. We're not trying to make a living and exploit the girls beyond their needs, but just because they're so healthy, they have gone out and harvested nearly 1/2 ton of honey this year.
Oh, amazing, amazing. When you talk about record keeping and that kind of thing, what do you think is the benefit of that?
One of the things that it does, and Jill's really good at this, is asking the question, why are we opening up the hive? Why are we going to do this particular inspection? And it's the records that keep that very planned before we even take the lid off. And it's come from writing down the observations at the front entrance and checking the boards underneath. All the hives have mesh boards, and so monitoring those and recording those gives us a really good planning tool and history as well. So Jill was able to record that on exactly the same day the last 2 years, the local native termite has flown when it has rained. And we know that because the wings end up all over the outside of the hives. Records showed that happened on exactly the same day last year, and we didn't record it the year before, but it seemed like it was around the same time. So there you go.
So with this termite you're talking about, what happens to this, to the termite?
I think it's their mating time of year where they have turned into a little flyer with their wings, and away they go and lay their eggs. And I don't know a lot about them, to be honest. We just know we have sent off a sample and had it identified as our native termite. They won't eat the house, they won't eat the woodwork, but they are a termite, native to New Zealand. There you go.
So they just leave behind their wings?
Yeah, they get wet, I think, and land, and then they're stuck. And there was occasionally we see the little larvae down on the ground, but only for a very short space of time.
So observation is something that you're talking about quite a bit. By doing that, you obviously are using it to your benefit. And I've been down to your hives, and you've had butterfly nets as well. Yes, the butterfly nets are there for wasps. And a lot of fun I had doing that.
What did you do, Margaret?
Oh, well, because there's wasp presence up there on the side of the hill, Jim and Jill had these butterfly nets, and so while I was there in the apiary, I was just having a great old time catching them and sorting them out. So, good thinking, and I use it out in our apiary too.
And so they're still there, but they haven't had much exercise this year. So a change in the wasp management stakes was that I decided that we would utilise the new product Vespex, and so I have been in and done the training and paid the exorbitant amount of money to buy the product in bulk and keep it in the freezer. And so since last year, we did that last season, during that last season, and this season, I haven't seen very many wasps at all. Now, it's either the Vespex is doing the job, or it might be that the season is slightly different. But based on what we had observed elsewhere in the Nelson area around Lake Rotoiti, the Nelson Lakes, the Vespex is being used there, and we have seen a major shift in wasps in that area, a decline in wasps in that area.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, so I'm a fan of Vespex. It does work, and so we've been using it, and this season have not, because we would expect wasps now, certainly have had one or two, but they've been just foraging and then gone. So hopefully,
Yeah, we've had a few, haven't we?
Yeah, we haven't had many, man. I mean, I was out there the other day, and we have our hives on hive stands, and I've seen them, just going along the ground, but it's nothing like the past. So I think it's been a great season for no wasps.
Yeah, and it might be the season. It might be seasonal, but certainly, we've got Vespex sitting around the apiary.
And you were saying about the records are really important now, so you can actually see the trends throughout the year, and you can see when the wasps start again and when the termites start.
And certainly that's helpful with the Varroa as well. So we are constantly monitoring the Varroa and recording it. So our Varroa records go back a long time, and the hives themselves are individualized in that sense. They're all named hives, and so we're keeping the track on. There's eight of them. We've got 8 hives.
And you can see the trends of the counts on that, can't you?
Yes, and very much so, and the differing treatments that we are utilising at the different times.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing that people need to learn, is that you need to check the mite load after the treatments to make sure they've actually worked,
Yeah.
This is the way that you keep your Varroa mite to a manageable level, and you're saying that you use mesh boards, and are you saying that you've got inspection boards with them, or sticky boards as some people call them?
Yes, we're putting those in and out depending on, and we obviously put them in to do a regular reading, which would probably be, I guess, monthly, 5 weekly, depending on the season, time of year. And so, yes, we have the sticky boards that go in. Also have another just blank cover to sit over the sticky board and put it in when temperatures encourage us to, keep the girls warm from underneath by having the core flute in there over the, colder periods.
And do you have any trouble with the notorious Wellington wind?
Yes, in a word. But it's the site itself is, I guess, sheltered. Our predominant wind is a northerly, northwesterly. We're totally sheltered from a southerly. We're on the north side of the ridge, and in the clearing in the bush, the clearing was created amongst the big Kānuka by some previous, and this is before our time, but some previous pine trees that were felled by the council. And so it created a crushed clearing. And so the bees themselves are sitting in amongst a shelter on either side. It's a little bit of a challenge to keep the maximum sun coming into the clearing for them. And at the moment, that's still okay. But yes, it's the wind. Yes, there is wind, and we have little boards that we put in front of the entrance to try and deflect the howling northerly.
Would you think that's one of the biggest issues facing beekeepers in Wellington?
Yeah, wind and site, and now more and more overstocking is one of the challenges. Jill reminded me to do some checking on that, and so we did. We just got on Google and looked at what our fly zone would be, what a stocking rate for that fly zone would be sensible, and then checked up on where all the other hives, around us are, and so we fell into that category of yes, they're not overstocked where we are.
Awesome.
And so that was a bonus. I don't have any control over that, but that was a bonus knowing that. But other areas are now being bombarded by mix of commercial and others getting into putting bees into the area, trying to get the manuka.
That's it. It's all about the dollars, isn't it?
Hunting the manuka.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though most of it's probably Kānuka, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Kānuka didn't flower for us this year in our immediate vicinity, and we would have seen 10 flower heads this year, but the Pahutakawa did really well.
Awesome. Yeah.
And so I think certainly the urban environment for bees is a little more across the board. So different flowers, different gardens, flowering with different plants at different times. So I think it is actually a benefit for the bees. They've got more foraging available for a longer period.
So with the understanding that there is all those different kind of floral things going on as well as the bush, did you get your honey tested at all?
This year I said, look, let's get our honey tested and see what it is. And so having spent the $300 to get a wide range of sample tests done, it came back for us and showed that it was it needed to pass the 5 tests to be a Manuka blend, and it passed 4 of those, and the 5th test missed by 0.05% to be able to call it a Manuka blend. And I don't get it. You don't see that much Manuka around us, but it must be coming from other plants that are producing similar properties, I guess.
Okay, and did you get a test for the Tutin?
Yes, we do the Tutin test each year. That's pretty important to do, and so we normally have done that through our bee club as a composite sample being sent off, and Tutin has not raised its head in our area forever, I don't believe, according to the club. But this year I also tested it ourselves as part of that wide test, and I do that because we have been, for the last 2 seasons, used one of the, and I don't know whether you're allowed to talk about the brand, but the Ross Rounds from their little box.
That'll be beeped out.
Okay. So we use the Ross Rounds, and because you don't produce these, so there's no way that
that's all right.
We appreciate that, Jim.
Yeah.
It's no worries.
and so with the Ross Rounds, of course, making the very pretty comb honey, we want to be really sure that we're not going to kill any of our relatives when we give it away.
Okay.
What's the name of the bee club you're involved in?
So it's the Wellington Bee Club, and it has a very wide collection zone for beekeepers, anywhere up to the edge of the Wairarapa, and all throughout Wellington and up to the edge of the Kapiti Coast. We get a collection of people that's held in Johnsonville. It's a monthly meeting. We have some renowned members of that. Our current president is Frank Lindsay. Frank does quite a lot of, or has done quite a lot of work for the National Beekeepers Association as well, and is extremely knowledgeable and has a number of other good mentors within the club, the John Burnett's and so on.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And John Randall, very, very good mentors for local beekeepers.
So well worth joining you from the Wellington area, eh?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's the best thing to do is join the club, get some hands-on before you step into, or before anyone steps into getting a nuke or a hive.
Frank Lindsay, he's a very knowledgeable guy, and he was actually interviewed on the KM125, so we were very lucky to have spoken to him in the past, and I'll include the link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, great.
What do you think's the biggest mistake you see a lot of new beekeepers making?
It's around not understanding the commitment of time and management that's going to be required, and that's, I'm sure, what is taking them away from beekeeping, coming in for 1 or 2 years, and then with hive loss, taking them back out of it, or they're just not staying with beekeeping, and not getting enough knowledge and experience before they step into it.
You recommended that people join a bee club. Is that one of your advice to them?
Yep, or attend a training course. There seems to be a few more of those around now. And get some time with the bees before you step into having your own.
Oh, that's great advice.
And also the other thing is, the lesson that we have learnt is they have taken a lot more time than we anticipated, and they have taken a lot more dollars than we anticipated.
Yes, you've got some pretty flash gear in your apron, haven't you, Jim?
And part of that is I'm a firm believer in having the right tools, or the best tools for doing a task. And in this case, the girls, I endeavour to give them the best facilities that we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's someone out there thinking about starting bees, how much time commitment do you think a couple of hives would take per week?
Probably a few hours a week, but it would be bunched up, so it would be cumulative. So, it would be a half a day every 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So you're not recommending opening the hive on a weekly basis?
No, not at all. I come back to what Jill reminds me of every time is, why are we doing this? Is it to give us a look at how things are going on inside the hive, or is it actually for a reason to check something or to confirm something? So, it's that observation thing. If you've observed enough at the front door of what's coming in, what's going out, who's loitering there, are they drones or are they workers? Is there deformed wing showing at the door? How many dead are there coming out? How many funerals going on? Once you've done all of that, got that behind you, and that's the regular thing that you would do. So Jill or I would be visiting our hives daily when we're at home, and we're not at home all the time, but we would pop down and have a look and observe and make a note if it was needed. So that's the other time commitment. It's very helpful.
Do you find that the bees have changed anything with you guys?
We enjoy being with them, and it's a pleasure to just go and hang out and observe the girls, or even be working them. What we do observe is that they have a changing cycle of behaviour, and some of it's going to be seasonal, but there are some days when they just tell us, would you mind going away? I'm not interested in you lifting the lid on my house today. Or what are you hanging around for? Are you here to steal something? Whatever. So, yes, observing them and working with them. I don't know that we've got a known genetic trait that is spreading amongst them. I don't think so. But they have different personalities within the hives.
Do you have a funny beekeeping experience that you would like to share with the listeners?
Well, funny not from... I suppose I was the one that found it funny early in the piece when we were getting... I think we got one bee suit to start with, and that fitted me and it didn't fit Jill, and then we got Jill a bee suit as soon as we could. And so Jill's first visit with her flash new bee suit on, she'd forgotten to put a peak cap on. So anyway, we were inspecting or doing something with the bees, and Jill's mesh and her nose were perfectly aligned, and she took a poke on the nose through the mesh. That was her first time in the bee suit at the hives doing some work, and she ended up with a fat nose because she reacts not severely, but she reacts to bee stings. So Jill had a fat nose after that, and I took a little bit of... I tried not to laugh. It was just one of those things that happened.
Not funny for Jill then?
No, not funny for Jill.
No.
Do you have any photos we could include in the show notes for that one?
I'd have to go back through the archives. There might be one. But yes.
You'd better ask Jill's permission first. But
the humorous thing for me anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's autumn here in New Zealand. So what's your plans for next season?
So looking forward at the moment is to get the wintering down done, and that's to reduce the hives and the varroa so that they can sneak through. And Jill's imposed a restriction on the number of hives, and I think that's probably quite sensible. 8's enough to get around and be managing. So we will get through the winter as best we can with the 8 hives, and we'll see what comes out the other side of the season. We may need to split or swarm catch. We will have the swarm catches out and move those on to potentially some other new beekeepers or existing beekeepers that want to expand. And so we're looking to do that wherever we can. I got a swarm call last year and was able to pick up the swarm and relocate it to a new beekeeper. We've been able to give some skill transfer to. She's going super well now. Excellent. Yeah, so that's the plans, is just to keep them ticking along. And the other challenge is to find somewhere for the surplus honey. We can only keep so much, we can only give away so much, and we can only trade a little bit. But and the girls will only consume a certain amount. So I don't know how that's going to go. But so when you winter down, what are your methods for wintering down your hives, Jim? Well, we'll get the box numbers down, so potentially two boxes, full depth boxes, and enough honey supplies in there. Maybe have a third, 3/4 box on top with honey in it for them. Get the varroa count down as low as we can, and you'll need to block your ears, Margaret, but we may need, if we're travelling overseas, going away, we may need to put some long-term chemical in there. Yeah. Beep, beep, beep. And that's just because we won't be around to do auxilic for that, and trying not to do that often so that we don't get the resistance. And so, wintering them down, just making sure that they have enough food and are warm enough. Excellent. So you've got a lot of things in place for that. And in terms of storage, have you got any advice for storing gear? Yes, it's quite bulky and needs a shed or somewhere, but not in the house. So we are trying very hard to keep the bee suits outside, the bee boxes away from the garage as much as possible. And so I have another project before winter, which is to put up a garden shed that is big enough to hold the gear in it, and that will, hopefully it will need to be sealed so that the bees don't find their way into it, and so we'll line it and seal it, and that way we can store the gear. And we're going to try to keep the wax moth out of it this year. We're growing some tansy plant. Tansy, I understand, is a natural inhibitor of the dreaded wax moth, and so you layer that with the boxes and put some glad wrap around them, and that should, or hopefully will, keep them at bay. And or they've been through the freezer. We chose to purchase, I don't know if we had to, but we chose to purchase a small freezer, which predominantly is where the bee equipment comes and goes through whenever we get a chance. Oh, excellent. So you've got some real handy hints there. Awesome. Well, that's a key ingredient, is progressing, through your beekeeping. And like you said, you've got new projects, you've learnt so much, and it's just been awesome to talk with you today. Yeah, I thank you for that, and it's certainly, we're happy with our bees, and we would love other people to experience the same. And open door here. Ever anyone wants to come and have a look or be part of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So how would people get in touch? Do you have a website or anything?
We're already poor from bee expenditure. Yeah, email's probably the best, and that's jimh.gilld@gmail.com. Okay, well, we'll include that in the show notes as well. Thanks, Jim, for coming, and say hi to Jill when she sees you next. Yes. So hopefully the babysitting of the 2-year-old is about to come to an end, and she'll return in the next few days. So that's another time waster, is it? Or is it not wasting time? I think, keeping bees is probably helpful for babysitting grandchildren as well.
Yeah.
I think there's a crossover there.
Yeah.
Children and bees, eh?
Yeah, children and bees.
Thanks so much, Jim, for coming, and it's been awesome to talk to you.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing your beekeeping adventures with us.
No worries. Enjoy.
Wow, that was cool, eh?
Yeah, enjoyed that, and it was really great to learn about some beekeeping management and the ideas that he's used to put the bees up on the hill, and it really shows how dedicated they are to the whole process. And yeah, that was really good, guys, and I hope that you find some value in that.
Well, I did, and here's what I've came up with, the key learnings. No matter where you live, you can adapt your environment to keep bees. Keeping records really helps you plan your next season.
Yes, and they've used their records to actually do some historical checking back on certain things that happen at certain times of year. So that was really important to hear how they've used that record keeping to help them with that. And the other key learning is also always ask yourself why we are opening the hive.
Yeah,
Definitely.
That's really important, eh? Because I think generally beginner beekeepers want to open up the hive every day, don't they?
I think so. There's a bit of enthusiasm in that and really interested, but that can be very harmful. So it's Jill says that, and she's right. Why are we opening the hive, and what's the purpose of this inspection?
Yes, and the final key learning we came up with was Jim and Jill used tansy plants,
Tanacetum vulgare.
Yeah, to inhibit wax moth when they're storing the frame. So we're coming out of winter now in New Zealand, so hopefully we'll ask them how they got on with that, eh? If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe in your podcast app, and then the shows will magically appear in your device. And the next show will be 126, and as a special bonus for our amazing supporters, 126B will have a bit more from Jim. He talks about some other projects he's doing, and we'll have that in the next bonus show.
Yeah, guys, and if you found some value in this and it was worth around $1, maybe you want to become one of our patrons and go to the Patreon on our website, and then you can support us too. So that would be awesome bananas.
Absolutely. So, thanks, guys, for listening, and we'll be back in a few weeks.
See ya.
Banana.
Banana.
Banana.